Hey y'all, how's it going? Um, I'm making this post today because today is now the last day of February, which is the shortest month of the year, also known as Black History Month. Um, I waited until the last day because for me, being black isn't, about a month of the year. It's a lifestyle. It's a year-round thing. I don't do anything different in February than I would do any other time of the year. But I've been observing and noticing some things. It's been an interesting Black History Month, so-called, because of all the news, things going on in our community, issues being discussed, and a lot of disagreements taking place. So, yeah, it's been interesting. But I wanted to weigh in a little bit and add a little bit to the conversation because I hope this conversation can be ongoing. Um, During Black History, during February every year, um, we have a lot of different kinds of features of different people who were prominent. I guess you could call African Americans in history. The Martin Luther Kings, the Marcus Garveys, the Malcolm X's, the great black inventors, the you know different people who are the I guess you could say pioneers who are some known, some less known, some unknown, and people kind of share a lot, especially now in the age of social media, about different things they're able to dig up historically, um, about our struggle as people here who I guess you could just say descended from those who were captured from Africa and brought over to this part of the world. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that because it seems to me that when it comes to that identity as a person, a black person in America, that identity seems to really have, it almost is like it's more about what was done to us in that process of captivity, slavery, um, genocide, unthinkable human barbarism that is still ongoing today. However you want to coin it, whatever word you want to use there, we can be clear on what happened, and we can be clear on what that has done to us and where we are now as a result of that. Um, but what I will say to that is all of that, as much as it needs to be remembered and recognized and acknowledged and discussed, that is not all there is to us and being us. That is not all there is to being black. Um, because before all of that happened, our ancestors had an identity. Our ancestors had a culture, a language. Hey, even like nowadays, we're using a calendar to say that today is February 28th or whatever the day it is. We had a calendar. We're celebrating our heritage according to a calendar that doesn't belong to us, using a language that doesn't belong to us. And the funny thing too is, we talk a lot about cultural appropriation, um, but at the same time, we can see Black Americans. Our culture is still more so an extension of the culture of those who enslaved our ancestors, because we have adopted their language, their clothing. We're depending on their systems to employ us, to feed us, to build our houses, to make our clothes, and all of this. And the situation that we're in is really, it's beyond sad. It's beyond, awful. And however, um, whatever reason we can put there, there's a lot of things being put around, tossed around as the reason. But as of right now, I would just say that for us right now, the reason is something to look at only in regards to what we do ourselves in order to get out of a situation that no one should have more interest in us getting out of than us. Uh, no one is going to be able to take us out of that situation but us. And when we talk about getting out of the situation, that's another point. What does that mean, getting out of the situation? So that's the next thing I wanted to talk about. We hear nowadays about closing the economic opportunity and wealth gap nowadays between black and white Americans, and I guess other types of Americans or whatever, but specifically within the black community, we're comparing black to white Americans, which is to say the descendants of the captors and the descendants of the captives. Um, Let me give this analogy. If you have a house, you built your house, you built it yourself, you used your own materials, you used what you had at your disposal to build your house. Someone comes and robs you. No, they come and basically kick you out of your house, and they take over your house. They're living in your house now. Then they say, you know what, okay, we feel bad. We'll let you live in the basement. So you live in the basement. These people still own your house. They dictate everything you can do in your house. They dictate everything you can have in your house, what you can use in your house, the laws, the rules that you have to follow in your house. But they let you live in the basement. Remember, you're the one who built the house. Now, if you don't have the means to kick that thief out of your house, should you then reduce your struggle to trying to find a way to fight for some kind of equality in that house? Or is there another option that might lie outside of that house? Because remember, they took that house. Regardless of how you feel about it, regardless if it's fair or not, they control that house. You don't control it anymore. What do you do with that? I mean, life has to go on at some point. Do you stay in that house? Or do you say, you know what? I need to build myself a new house. I need to take the responsibility for my destiny and make sure that this person does not have control over the new house that I'm building. This person cannot be the one to tell me how to build my house. I can't build my house based on whatever I learned or liked or didn't like in the house that they took from me and whatever they said I could do there. My life in the future doesn't have to be based on that, because I can still build my own house. I can make it the way I want it. I can make it according to my needs, right? But the problem is this: at this level now, generations later, we don't have the means now even to build our own house. We don't. You know, apparently even, some of our younger people don't even know how to go to a polling place and vote, even if they want to, or know how to cook, or know how to sew a button on a pair of pants, let alone farm, grow food, extract materials from the earth and process it into something that can be useful to you, uh, make clothes, so on and so on and so on. Let alone speak our own language, let alone have our own calendar, let alone have our own culture and values and gods and spirituality and um, ways of worshiping our ancestors and laws, codes of behavior, and understanding of basic things like what does it mean to be a man or a woman, that all my life I always thought was basic. All of this stuff is now kind of obscure. We don't understand anymore. We don't have a reference point to understand all of that because we've spent so much time in this house of our oppressor, and we're still there. To a point where we feel like we don't even have anywhere else to go. But the fact of the matter is, we came from somewhere. Our ancestors came from somewhere. At some point, we came from somewhere. There's some place that we belong. And where we belong isn't always just about physically a place in the earth, but like even just the energetic and spiritual expression of yourself, of ourselves. So yeah, there's an origin for all of that. Our ancestors, when they were brought over here, were not just a blank piece of paper. Our ancestors brought over here had something. Is it me, or is it like not that big of a leap to then say, if whatever we're in now is not serving us and hasn't served us for how many hundreds of years, it's not going to serve us in the future? Is it that big of a leap to then say, why don't we go back to what our ancestors were? Because there's something, I mean, even if you don't even know the exact tribe or the exact country or the exact whatever, anything you could get back in Africa is going to be so much closer to whatever we doing here. So much closer to what our ancestors did, what your ancestors did. So, with that in mind, um, we've been talking about Black history. But one thing I want to say to everybody is that what our ancestors came from, just because our ancestors were coming from that when they were, how many 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 300 years ago, 400 years ago, whatever, we can say that's history. But whatever they came from still exists in the present. It's still there. It didn't go anywhere. It's still there. So what I'm proposing is right now that Black History Month is over, let's start talking about the Black present. But when I say Black, I want to be very clear. When I'm saying Black, I mean Black as in Black culture, Black civilization, Black language, Black time division, Black spirituality. Not just black skin, or not just kinky hair, not just big lips and big noses. I'm talking about black as in the black, what that culturally makes us black inside. How we express ourselves, how we understand ourselves, how we understand the world around us. That has so much more to do with being black than one drop. I mean, if we talking about just one drop of black blood makes you black, then that means everyone in the world is black. So what does that do for us right now? You see. So I'm proposing that we start talking about the black present. The black present that um, is the link, the expression of what our ancestors came from that still exists today. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about what that is. Let's talk about how they understand all of these issues that we're now talking about, that we're fighting over, arguing about. What is our culture? What do our roots have to say about that? Because if we don't go back to that, we just clinging on to what did the progressives say? What did the leftists say? What did the Democrats say? What did the Republicans say? What did the LGBT community say about that? What does the scientific field say about that? What does Christianity say about that? All these things that are expressions of our oppressors' system, not our system. So what does our culture have to say about all of these things that we're dealing with nowadays that we don't seem to be having answers for? What is the black present for all of this? That's the question I'm going to leave you guys with today. I'm going to be coming back talking about some more of these topics. But this is just introductory because I just want everyone to understand where I'm coming from. Hopefully you can watch this video and get what I mean. All right. Look forward to talking to you guys again soon. Take care.